So I want to talk to you guys tonight about, tell you guys a story and further explain, how things got to where they are today. Because what I'm dealing with, and the narcissism has never been so overtly obvious to me, as it is today. I mean, it's the control, the manipulation, the abuse. When you're dealing with one of these people, once you're armed with the knowledge, and you've done your homework and your research, it's a whole different ballgame. Because when you're dealing with these people, in a sense, before you know all this stuff, it is very difficult. If I knew back then what I know now, I probably would have handled myself a lot differently. Because, see, here's the thing. To me, the narcissist, when they find somebody that they do not like, I remember watching this video on YouTube, actually, and it said, the narcissist hates those who they cannot control. And that's me. So once you're black booked or blacklisted by them, there's no, it's called splitting. People are either all good or all bad, right? So I've obviously been split by the narcissist into the all bad, part. There is nothing for me. And they will actually start kind of keeping a score, like a mental tally of all the things that upset them with you. So, she's been tallying it up for 4 years now. And so she knows that I got her number. There's no question. She knows that I got her number. So where I am today, in terms of dealing with her, I don't. Let's just start off. All right. So 4 years ago, 2013, my brother, even going back a year, let's just go back another year there. So it was around the end, I think, of 2012. My brother was, with this girl for 6 years. She and him, they lived together. They had an apartment together. For the last 2 years of their relationship, they were engaged to one another. Then they broke up. My brother actually caught her cheating. So when you catch somebody cheating on you, you kind of have an axe to grind. And so he started to, go out. He kept the apartment that they shared, and agreed to continue paying the lease because they had just signed a new lease agreement right before they broke up with one another. So, he started going out with his buddies and going to bars and, doing the single thing. He doesn't have that much life experience with women and stuff at that time, That was really his second kind of long-term girlfriend outside of high school, in adult life. And he didn't date many girls in high school. I think he had like 1 or 2 girlfriends. When he graduated high school, he dated, in college, dated this girl for a few years. They broke up. He was single. He was single. He didn't, I think he might have hung out with one girl in between for a short amount of time. And he was single until he met this other girl that he was engaged to, his ex. So, he don't have the life experience. And he never, I guess, did that whole sowing your wild oats thing, Because my brother's kind of a reclusive guy, He's an introvert. He is not that social. He don't have that many friends, Doesn't have any long-term friends, which is something now that I look at and I wonder why that is. I have a girlfriend and a guy friend that I've been friends with like my whole life, and we're still in touch. And, my brother wasn't so good at keeping relationships with other people. During his years and, school years, he switched groups of friends very frequently. So, that was just giving you guys a little background on who he is. So, that was that. And then, as far as girlfriends, when he broke up with his ex, he kind of, in his late, or mid 30s at the time, he started to kind of test the waters out, sow his wild oats, whatever you want to call it. And he hung out with quite a few different girls in a short amount of time. And I think he was only really single, not even for a full year yet. And you guys might disagree with this, but this is just my personal opinion. I feel like, and I remember this from an episode of Sex and the City, I think it was, where, they talk about breakups after long-term relationships. And I believe it was Charlotte. She says something to the effect of, you need at least half the amount of time of the relationship. So if the relationship was like 6 years, you need 3 years to get over it. And I kind of agree with that in a sense. But I would, no matter how long it was, if your relationship went over a year, into 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I personally think you need a good, solid year to get over it, move on, rebuild yourself. Because no matter what kind of relationship you're in, you change, Every person in my life that I've dated has somehow, affected my life. So my brother wasn't, 6-year-long relationship that ended in an engagement for 2 years. You would think he would have been really upset, but he kind of handled it a lot better than I thought he would. That was that. My brother was broke up with his ex, so he's single. He was, dating around, and I remember he got up to a certain point in time where he started dating this girl. He had dated several girls, a month here, 2 months there. And there was this one girl that he seemed really interested in and, whatnot. And they were hanging out a little bit more often and things were starting to get a little bit more serious. And I remember he went food shopping with her one night. They were going to make dinner and whatever. My brother actually likes to cook. I don't, but he does. So they went food shopping, and I remember him calling me like the next day, and he just like bugged out. He panicked. He was like, I don't know, it's too soon. I feel like I was just doing this with my ex, and maybe I just need to be single. Because he went hardcore, balls to the wall. He was like chick after chick after chick. I guess he got a little confidence and stuff like that. Because I really do believe my brother's lack of confidence and self-esteem is what leads him to be in relationships with controlling women. Because his girlfriends, well, I don't think that previous ones were really narcissists. I do think that he dated some women who have some control issues and, stuff like that. So he was, he freaked out after this girl, and he, kind of told her, he broke up with her, basically. They just went their separate ways, and he's like, I just really need time to myself. And he started taking that time to himself. He redid his apartment, and he got new furniture, and, he was kind of rebuilding himself, a new identity. And tells me this, and then about, it was probably like 2 weeks later, if even, he goes out, it's St. Patrick's Day now, 2013. He goes out one night, out probably about an hour away from where we live. Probably more than that, 2 hours, actually. He goes out, and he goes to this bar for St. Patrick's Day. And the next day he calls me, and he's like, I met this chick. She was so hot. I was talking to her the whole night, but I didn't get her phone number. And I was like, oh, all right. I'm thinking in my head, well, didn't you say that you were going to just like be single? And I think that's why he didn't ask for her phone number, because he said to himself, I'm just going to be single for a little bit. So, he didn't get her phone number, but he was like kind of crushed about it, I'm like, whatever, maybe it wasn't meant to be. The next weekend, the very next weekend, he goes out to a bar that was his pretty much, regular spot that he was at with his boys every weekend. And there she is, the girl whose number he never got. She showed up. And I'm like, at first I thought it was just a coincidence. knowing what I know now, I do not think that that was a coincidence whatsoever. I think that, I remember going out and you talk to people and you're like, hey, let me get your phone number. And where do you normally go out, and you talk about those kinds of things when you meet somebody at a bar. So she probably, she sensed something, because most narcissists, psychopaths, they can read other people extremely well. And so she saw sucker written right across his head. And she's like, I better go find him. He looks like silly putty. Very easy to control, this guy. And my brother is a old school gentleman, He's the kind of guy that's going to hold the door open for you and bring you flowers. And, he's very old school in that sense. And he's like that kind of guy, that just good guy that you can trust, and you don't have to worry about him cheating on you or doing anything dishonest, really, So she saw that. It's evident just from talking to him and the way he presents himself that he's a good guy, And she saw that, and she was like, ooh, somebody I could take advantage of. This guy's going to be the perfect form of supply for me. So she shows up that next weekend. I think my brother went home with her that night. I didn't, sometimes he used to TMI to me, give me too much information, and I used to just tune it out. But I'm pretty sure he went home with her that night. Whether he got lucky, I don't know. I don't give a fuck. I don't even want to think about that. But all right. So, but from that day on, their relationship moved with such an intensity. It was just fast and furious, whirlwind romance, whatever you want to call it. I did not meet her right away. We met her for the first time, actually, a month after they met each other. So they met on St. Patrick's Day. We met her April 19th. So a month and 2 days, or whatever you want to say. So we met her, my brother, we were going out to dinner. It was April 19th, and the reason I remember the date is because that day is actually the anniversary of our, father's death. So we invited her, my brother was like, I guess saw it as a good opportunity to bring her, along and to meet me, my mom, my husband, and my son. So here we are now, we're meeting her for the first time. I don't want to judge somebody from the first, time. That's really, to me, just not right. She was very quiet that night. One thing I did notice about her, which I found a little bit odd, was that any talking she did do, it was kind of like she was talking to us through my brother. But she really didn't talk that much that night. She was very shy, very quiet, and I thought it was weird because I didn't, she just didn't look like a shy person. And I remember at one point during dinner, I unfortunately am a smoker. I went outside to smoke a cigarette, and he came with me, and she smoked at the time too. So we all went outside to have a cigarette, and it was weird. It was me, him, and her. And she kind of had her back turned towards me, and she was talking to my brother almost as if I wasn't there. It was a little bizarre. So I was kind of leaned back, trying to just observe the situation myself. So I didn't disrupt, I was trying to observe how they were interacting with each other and whatnot, So a month in, they were already hanging out on a daily basis and talking about, the future, moving in with each other and this and that. And my brother was just so impressed with this girl. He's like, she's intelligent, and she was everything that his ex was. I don't want to call her a parasite because I don't think she was. I think she was just she was confused, She still didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. It was always she was on a constant self, journey, trying to figure out who she is. Because, when we met her, she was, nannying, and then she went into, maybe I'm going to be a life coach, and then she became a ballroom dancer. She wasn't making much money, and that's who she ended up actually cheating on my brother with, was her ballroom dance partner. They started dating one another, and it was just very, very intense from the very, very beginning, My brother thought she was so smart, and, she made good money, and she owned her own house, and, it was all these things that were just the complete opposite of what his ex was. And, I didn't know this at the time, but that's called mirroring. I didn't know that. And she had a daughter, too. That was another thing. She had like a 10-year-old daughter, and or 11, 10 or 11. And my brother, you know, I remember him telling me that, oh, you know, I haven't met her daughter yet. And this is a couple of weeks into their relationship. And, you know, she says that we're not going to meet for months. And, you know, she doesn't want her daughter to, you know, meet another guy if I'm not going to plan on sticking around for long and this and that. And I was like, all right, you know, that sounds, you know, I have respect for that. Exactly 3 days after she gave him this big speech about how she doesn't want, you know, him to meet the daughter yet, she introduces him. So in 3 days, she was able to somehow magically tell that my brother was, you know, a good guy. It's just crazy. A week after meeting her for the first time, my brother brings her to my house. That time, my mom wasn't there. So I was interested really to see who she was at this point in time, thinking, you know, it's a little different, you know, and when the parents are around, you know, people act different. When she walked into my house that day, the difference was just unbelievable. It was like a whole different person walked into my house.